Some artists have compared it to making a pact with the devil, but given the similarity in operations amongst most record labels, artists frequently find themselves with no other option but to sign on the dotted line.
In today's episode, Bitch Better Have My Money, we take a look at the practices of some of the biggest record labels in the industry and some of the artists who have found themselves so caught up in loopholes and clauses that they found themselves with little to no control when it comes to their own music.
It is worth emphasizing, however, that while we discuss some individuals who are incredibly affluent, others are not as fortunate, and their voices undergo comparable mistreatment too often without receiving due recognition.
But before all that, let's take a look at some of this week's hottest new releases and see what albums we've had on shuffle, tracks we've had on repeat, and what we think might just be worth a skip.
Oh. So you've been DJing this week.
I have. I DJ'd on like a Barbie Dream House.
Who was it for?
So it was NYX with Barbie. So it was an official collaboration for the film. I'm going to do that again. So it was NYX and Barbie. So it was an official collaboration for the film. It's just incredible.
And who was there? That's the main thing, isn't it?
Anyone and everyone. You had a ton of influencers. It was influencers galore, but it was the nice influencers. So there were people that I know. So Faye Kingston, shout out my girl Faye Kingston. She was there just bringing all the vibes, dancing as usual, but just everyone just bringing the vibes. It was really, really fun.
Like feel good.
And feel good. But do you know, it's so different now because, I mean, sometimes it's like you'll play a track and I'll just be playing a track and I forget that these are TikTok tracks. And all of a sudden you have people like putting their phones down, crouching tiger, like literally just...
So they could get the content.
Exactly. It's all about the
content.
So, I know. But track of the night was the new Nicki Minaj and Aqua one. So like Barbie World, that was the one. As soon as I played that, everyone was just singing. We played Mariah. I played Mariah. I say we. Like
you and those multiple personalities.
I know.
No, we mustn't play that.
I knew they were my people.
Yeah.
So
I've seen a few clips. A few people I know were there.
Oh really?
Yeah. I wasn't in London, but I seen a few videos pop up. And it did look fun. Let's talk music. So what has been on your radar this week?
Other than Barbie, Mahalia actually has a new single. So it's called Ready. And I love Mahalia. We're going to be talking about her a lot more this episode. So I'm not going to delve too into it. But for me, she's a UK artist that I will champion all day long. She's like real, pure R&B from the soul. Just none of that. I don't know, it's not contrived. And I feel like she deserves a lot more. So anytime I can talk about Mahalia, anytime she has new music, I'm always there. She's already released her track, Terms and Conditions. She released a track called Cheat with JoJo. And again, who doesn't love JoJo? Mahalia and Ready, I'm there for it. It's, for me, just like real R&B with a story behind it. So yeah, definitely on repeat.
I think you make a good point there about championing British female artists. Funny enough, another one that I've been listening to is Anne-Marie, who's been killing it recently. Obviously, she's got her album due for release at the end of this month. She just released her last single, collaboration with Shania Twain,
yes,
which I loved. This new track, Trainwreck, is produced by Bill and Ted, Can't Do No Wrong, but also co-written with Camille, our girl.
Yes, love.
So Anne-Marie's described it as a track about being with someone who's not good for you, but you stay with them because you're scared of what it'll be afterwards. So something a lot of people probably can resonate with. As I said, this is coming from her upcoming album On Health. And I think one track everyone's waiting to hear is due to feature Khalid as well. So everyone's really looking forward to that track because it's not been released yet. She'll also be taking the album on tour end of this month. So make sure you go grab your tickets if there's any left. And she's going kind of far and wide with that as well. So definitely lots of opportunities there to see her live. But again, a brilliant female artist. Who's really been putting the graft in over the last couple of years.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad that it's going so well for her because she does work extremely hard, as all of us have seen over the years because she's produced some really great work.
Mm-hmm. And I've seen her live. She's incredible. Another one that I've had on repeat is Running Blind, which is with Aluna, Karine Lomax as well. And for me, as a black woman in dance, these are two acts that I just live for and I love because they're just so unapologetically them. And this is a track which actually came together after Beyonce winning the Grammys. So they met as they were celebrating Beyonce's... So they were celebrating the Grammys and Beyonce. So that was it, really. And they were driving around the town looking for parties. And Aluna was like, you know what? This could work. I've had this song and I feel like this is the girl that could finish the story. Like, I love hearing how songs come together, and when they come together in a really authentic way, it shows. Again, for me, this is like, it's dance heaven. And I love pianos. Like, when it comes to house music, for me, like, I love those strong piano chords, and this song brings that. Like, it fully brings that. And then she's also released her album. And again, like, I love it when an album is not just an album. Like, it's actually, like I say, it's not just an album, but it's like, it's a body of work. It means something more. And I mean, as much as we're here talking about music and all things that we love, like, we're here because we really do want to, you know, talk about things that perhaps we don't necessarily like and bring about the change that we see just through even conversation. And for Aluna, she mentioned that for her, that was a really big part and point of the album. Was there's a lot of things that were going on and she wanted to talk about those, and
in her
that
life?
In that
In her life or in the music industry, or
just
both?
in general. So
Okay.
she's actually called the album anti-racist. So been driven, I think, by, what is it, the anti-racist movement and allies. And for her, she said, like, it was about becoming an advocate for the changes that she wants to make in the dance music industry. So yeah, living for that. And again, I think Aluna's British. Today's very British focused, but I mean...
Do you know what, actually? The next act I was going to talk about is British as well. Female collective Flow. I love female collective.
Yes.
I don't know where I just got that from, but they don't refer. I don't think they refer to themselves as
No.
that. But it sounds more badass than girl band, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But yeah, Flow have just released a 3-track EP called Three of Us, and it's very much so whet your appetite while we wait on the album.
And we'll wait.
Yeah, we will wait. They are very much so in demand at the moment. I think they've even said this is to kind of keep you at bay until we're ready to release, because the fans have been so eager to hear new music. Again, it's actually co-produced by Emanike. So he's actually a frequent collaborator with Flo. But they've actually I think it was Rolling Stone, they really showed how much they appreciate him, because they said something like, oh, he's pretty much the fourth member of the band. He just cleans up. He cleans up. I want that boy's bank balance.
I didn't know where you were going to go with that. I didn't think you were going to say bank balance. I thought you were going to say something else. I was just like, I thought you were going to say babies. That's what I would have said.
So the title track is named the same as the EP. Three of Us delves into a narrative of a man that's not getting with two women but three. And the track draws a lot of inspiration from The Boy Is Mine, obviously the 90s hit. So yeah, definitely give that a listen. Give the EP a bit of a shuffle, and we'll wait patiently for the album, I guess, which hopefully comes this year.
It's got to be this year. They have fans for a collective who have not.
I love that we
around,
renamed them
like
a female
collective. They'll be like,
collective.
no.
It sounds like some kind of cult.
For a group that has not been around for too long, they really do have like a serious fan base globally as well. In the States, they're big, they're huge.
They do a lot of shows that way. Yeah, they've been playing these tracks from this EP a lot over there. They've been well received. Last one for me is a new track from Armin Van Buuren. So it's called Motive. Again, similar with Flow. This is happening a lot at the moment. Calvin did it recently, and maybe Ibiza, I'm not too sure where it was actually, where he teased a new track with Sam Smith. Armin's been playing this quite a bit over the last couple of months at his sets, and fans have been calling for its release. When describing the track, he said, although the notion of a motive refers mostly to love and heartbreak in the song's lyrics, he says he thinks there's a broader meaning to it, and that's worth homing in on. He stated that sometimes, especially when you find yourself limited, numb, or otherwise repressed, you've got to be honest and ask yourself what your own motive is, and therefore gain a new perspective, which could be key in overriding whatever that it is holds you back. So it's very deep.
That is deep.
For an electronic track.
But I've met Armin Van Buuren.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've met Armin Van Buuren. I've released a track Don't Let It Stop with the Melody Men on his label, so on
Available
Armada.
to stream now.
And he is very deep, like in terms of, you know, his music and what he does, his releases, like he's very hands-on and he knows what it is he wants. And I feel like with dance music, it can almost get like a reputation of just being, I don't know, because there's certain genres that we do think of as being deep. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that is true. Yeah, like Adele's albums.
Exactly.
You really read into those, don't you? Whereas there's some you just like, yeah, it's just something to dance to.
And I love that these guys are really taking the thought and talking about it as well. Because people should know, like, dance music is not just there for you to take a pill and, you know, whatever. Like, let's get deep. So I'm here for it.
Well, if there's anyone to champion it, it's him. He's one of the biggest ambassadors for electronic music. And this new track is really worth taking a listen to.
In terms of albums, because I feel like for me, it's mainly been singles. Apart from the Barbie album, Taylor Swift has just released Speak Now, Taylor's version. So, re-recorded project. And for me, again, I just love Taylor. I feel like, you know, when she first came out, for me, I thought she was a little bit, I'm not going to lie.
Didn't give it the time of day.
I thought she was a basic Betty.
I remember. But to be fair, it just wasn't my genre. Do you mean it wasn't my thing? So I definitely I can see where you're coming from. She's definitely grown on me a lot in the last 5 years or so.
My girl has sass.
Yeah.
A lot of sass.
And she's gone through a lot, to be fair. At quite a young age.
Yeah. She speaks up. I feel like she advocates. I have a lot of time for Taylor. Yeah.
One thing I did read this week about her new albums, because obviously, we'll get into that in today's episode, actually, very topical, was a review where it said, great that she's doing it, but the new re-releases, she's lost a lot of her youthful sound.
Yeah. That I did not like at all. Didn't appreciate it. As a headline, it was re-recording project starting to feel wearying and pointless. I was like, girl, come on. Did not like it. And as a woman, I thought that was pointless. What was the point? What was the reason? Do you know what I mean? For me, there's so much behind this. And she spoke about the reason why she re-recorded it, which we'll get into.
No time like the present, I think.
Let's do it.
Let's jump into this week's topic. To kick us off, shall we look at the complexities of contracts? So I think people will be quite interested to know a little bit more about how these agreements are made up.
Yeah. I mean, there are some artists that have been through the ringer. Like, when you see some of these stories, you think, what? So over the years, numerous musicians have expressed their discontent with the music industry. So many artists have chosen to resist by taking legal action, filing lawsuits, declaring bankruptcy, or even, like Taylor Swift, re-recording their previously released albums. However, the legal system tends to favour corporations, providing them with further opportunities to dominate the market and exploit artists. And also, the advent of massive streaming platforms over the past several years only adds to the complexity of the situation.
Yeah, exactly. And I think moreover, women in the industry, particularly black female artists, they face significantly lower success rates in these legal battles as well against these major companies. And that's seen time and time again. And then furthermore, not only are these women contending with financial exploitation, but they're also fighting sexism, ageism, and sexual abuse as well, as we've seen in some really high profile cases over the last few years. So should we look at some of the complexities behind the contracts? Because I think a lot of listeners might be really interested because they don't see that side of it. Obviously, contracts don't get shared all that too often unless you're Kanye West and tweeting about it.
It's true. Yeah. And I think we should start off by saying that we are in no ways, shape or form legal experts. Although I did go to law school. I went to law school, did I tell you?
I have a law degree.
Do you?
Yeah.
I take that back. We're legal experts, bitch.
We are legal experts. We're not legal experts.
No, we're not.
So obviously record labels and contracts can be very complex, and something that's probably worth noting is each contract is very different for each individual artist, depending on the record label, depending on the artist, depending on their notoriety as well. But that plays a huge part in it. So record labels will have a wide array of options when it comes to entering into these agreements with artists. The nature of these deals, it's continually adapting kind of to reflect the landscape of the industry. And then notably, there's been a recent shift in favour of artists because of these high-profile cases. particularly those who have succeeded in building their own kind of dedicated fan base and generated substantial excitement around their work. And these deals can kind of, well, they can be divided, can't they, into two main categories, I guess.
Yeah, they can. So there's the ones where the label owns the recordings, and then there's the ones where the artist retains ownership. So when we talk about ownership, we specifically refer to the master copyright. Now, that's important. Like, you're going to hear that a lot during this episode. And what that means is it is the rights to reproduce and to exploit the recordings themselves. So this is completely different and distinct from the underlying songs.
Yeah, let's touch on that a little bit more, actually. So let's really delve into explaining recording contracts.
Right. So one thing with recording contracts is these are different and they are distinct from publishing contracts. And this is something that I learned early on when I kind of got into the industry, as far as moving away from just DJing and into producing my own tracks and writing my own tracks and releasing my own tracks. Because I didn't know, like you say, that people don't really talk about this too much outside unless you're in it and going through it. And I think that's why a lot of these issues arise.
Yeah, because as an artist, you're more focused on creating the music, aren't you?
Mm-hmm. And you're oftentimes told to just focus on the music. Like, I know that that's something that I had. It's like, just don't worry about that. But let me tell you, if you're an artist, be worried about that.
Oh, that's shady, isn't it?
But yeah, you get told, like, oh, your job is just to make the best music possible.
We'll focus on all this, don't worry.
Yeah, no. That's how you get caught in a 360 deal.
Which we'll come on to actually in a bit, yeah. While the specifics of recording contracts can differ based on obviously the type of deal, there are usually some common elements. For instance, these contracts tend to be exclusive, so that means the artist is prohibited from signing with another record label. And then additionally, there's kind of typically a predetermined duration of the contract. So that's referred to as the term of the deal. So that'll be a year, 2 years, 3 years, and so on. And that probably leads us quite nicely into pay, because that's obviously the crux of it, really, isn't it? And the title of this episode. And that's the reason that has people up in arms, is how much of a percentage that these record labels end up getting at the end of the day.
It is. So the compensation that an artist receives from a record label basically depends on the type of deal offered. So it's typically determined by the royalty rate and the advance provided.
Yes, the advance is that's the big bit, isn't it?
The advance, there's a Kanye song, Touch the Sky, where he talks about, he went to Jacob the jeweler, an hour after he got his advance, he just wanted to shine. So he's like talking about, he got his advance and my guy was down to the jewelers because the advance may be nice, but the details and the finer details of
when
the
you
contract,
have to repay the advance because your music hasn't made the money back.
Exactly.
That's not the position you want to be in. And now when we talk about advance, obviously that refers to the initial payment by the label to the artist. And it's essential really to understand that that advance is not free money, and it's more of an investment. I think that's probably the best way to describe it. So that's the label anticipating what you're going to make from this batch of music, from this record or from that single or from that album. And the label will then anticipate recuperating that. And then consequently, artists will not receive any royalties from that music until the label has made that money back. And you made a good point earlier when you brought up the 360 contracts. Yeah. So I think it's probably worth maybe delving into that a little bit and further explaining what exactly that entails.
So it's worth noting that the 50-50 and the 360 deals may function differently compared to other types of agreements. So while 50-50 deals are fairly self-explanatory, this 50-50, royalty rates for most deals generally range from 13% to 20%, depending on the artist's level of prominence. So if you are a Harry Styles, you've got a little bit more say-so than if you're someone that's just up and coming, hasn't really done that much. Or not even if you're a Harry Styles, if you are somebody that may have done something on, because things have changed as far as notoriety. Yeah,
and those 50-50 record deals were really uncommon previously, but they've become increasingly popular due to that growing influence and the power of independent. That was very Northern Irish of me, the power.
I like it.
And the power of that independent artist as well, and the influence they have in the industry and their fan base. And they've been able to achieve success perhaps sometimes without relying on that traditional label.
Yeah.
TikTok again being a perfect example, or a lot of people, even actors that, you know, they're dual talented. Is that a word? Dual talented, where they can act and sing, or maybe
Yeah, like
they're
multi-hyphenated.
multi-hyphenate. Yeah, the
Yeah.
J-Lo being
Love.
a good example. Where they've maybe caught fame somewhere else, and they've actually now been like, okay, what I'd really love to do is music, and because of that, they brought that fan base with them.
Exactly.
Whereas the traditional route wasn't necessary, and what the record label can offer isn't needed. So therefore, those 50-50 deals are better suited for those people.
I have actually signed, well, I've released tracks, because another thing as well, I guess when we're talking about this, we're mainly talking about, you know, album deals, so multi-single deals as opposed to your one-off deals. But it depends. Like with tracks, when you're signing to like a smaller label, you will kind of expect that 50-50. But then another thing that I've realized is you see the 50-50 and you're like, yes, but then that's 50-50 is you versus the label. Not you versus, but you and then the label. But then if there's other artists, that 50 that you have then gets split.
That
so
pie is coming to
trust me.
That pie is getting smaller and smaller. So yeah, 50-50 deals can be very lucrative for an artist. On the other side, 360 deals, sometimes not as lucrative.
Yeah. The deals that we talk about where the artist has truly, truly, truly not benefited, those have tended to be 360 deals. So they are where a record label takes a stake in all aspects of an artist's income.
Yeah, so again, when we talk about 360, it's fundamentally the arrangement where the label has invested in and supported the artist's recordings, which then leads to increased revenue from various sources, basically. So like performances, merchandise, touring, and then the label will take a percentage of all these streams rather than just the music.
Yeah. To me, it's crazy. Like, it's absolutely insane.
Because at the end of the day, record labels are businesses, aren't they? And that's why they've introduced these.
They are. They definitely are. That's it. So they introduced these agreements to increase their profits. And that's what the artists have an issue with. Like, I think everyone just wants fairness. Like, we get it. You invested in us. We understand that. But 360, like, literally going back to pie, taking a slice of everything is just a lot.
But then when you look at it on the flip side, it may be a relatively unknown artist, and the record label has obviously put in a lot of investment at the ground level into the artist, and then more so than perhaps other entities. So for an artist alone, this doesn't always justify surrendering such a large portion of their income, but for some that maybe need that PR and need that extra push, it can be quite beneficial. So it's a little bit of both sometimes. Sometimes people can benefit greatly from it. There's been other scenarios where that's just not the case at all. And I think famously J. Cole expressed how dissatisfied he was with his 360 deal, but I think at the same time, if I'm right and my memory's good, said at the same time it was the best deal for him. So there are positive aspects to it, such as the label's increased commitment to kind of investing the artist as a whole, as a product, rather than solely focusing on the recordings.
Another thing, there's so much. So another point that we have to talk about is perpetuity.
Taylor Swift.
Yeah. For me, when I look at any contract, this is the most important one.
You're looking for that word.
Yeah. Because like perpetuity, it basically means that the record label, they can retain the ownership of your master recordings indefinitely. That's forever. Forever. Like it's not figuratively, it's literally like they will hold the records, like it belongs to them.
And not only
forever.
It belongs to them, but they can sell it to whoever they want. And
Again,
that's the issue.
Taylor Swift. Yeah, that's it. So
but confusion can arise from that. It's not very straightforward, and I think that's understandably where a lot of artists have fallen short.
Definitely. It's something that artists are talking more about, artists are more aware of. And even in, here in the UK, a bill was put forward by a Welsh Labour MP to address, it was to do with streaming, but he also wanted more contract transparency and to prevent the existence of perpetuity clauses within record deals, which is a big thing.
Now, I think all these big money deals sound very flash and they're all very enticing, again, as we said at the top of the show, they can cause havoc on careers as well.
Mm-hmm.
And over the last 10, 20 years, we've seen more and more artists speak out against these ridiculous contracts and the situations they've got themselves into. And there's been some real trailblazing artists as well that have fought back and really put their neck on the line. So Prince was probably one of the first artists that really took a stand against record labels that really caused quite significant consequences as well for his public image and his media coverage, because he pushed it into his work. He didn't just have an issue with them behind the scenes. He really took it into his art form, and he'd put it on stage and he'd make statements that were quite bold. His issue with his record label started around 92 and continued right up till his death as well, which is really interesting. And he really tried to make extensive efforts to enlighten the public, really, especially new artists that were coming into the industry, about the nature of the music industry and how it wasn't all glitz and glamour, and how much power really that these labels had, not just in terms of finances, but also artistic expression. Because as you'll know, it isn't just money. Sometimes the A&R can have a lot of say in terms of which of your singles it is that they're going to go with at the end of the day. And obviously, famously, he changed his name, or his stage name, to just a symbol.
Yeah.
And that was actually in a bid to get around contracts and around some of the deals he was in. But unfortunately, it didn't have the effect that he wanted, and therefore took his grievances, as I said before, into his art form, so on stage. And he would often paint words like slave onto his face, which he famously did at the Brit Awards in 95. He then also produced, quite similar to Taylor Swift, to re-record his albums, and then he'd reach out to other artists to try and include them in this kind of fight against those that held the power. He did sever ties with his record label, but then managed to regain ownership of his masters only after agreeing with that record label to release 2 more albums. So he got his masters in the end, but at the same time still had to give them a little. So obviously, re-recording your music is a huge undertaking, but it just goes to show you the level of work and how far these artists are willing to go to in order to regain control of their own music.
Yeah.
Taylor Swift being the perfect example.
The Taylor story, to me, is just, it's truly fascinating. And I'm going to say...
It's definitely a tale, isn't it?
It is. It is a tale. And, I mean, we look back and she signed with Big Machine label group in 2004. And as part of her signing that contract, like, there's always something. It's like, yeah, get money, woo! But you're always given something back. And that involved her relinquishing the ownership that she had of her master recordings for her first 6 album. But again, so she did that so that she would get, the financial support to really take her career to the next level, which she did. So whilst Taylor was focusing on the music, Scooter Braun...
That name shall not be mentioned in the studio.
Scooter Braun. No, but I think prior to that, there was some dealings with Universal, and then Universal, I think, sold to Scooter Braun. And I remember that there was loads of beef, like Justin, I'm a Belieber. And Bieber got involved because obviously Scooter Braun is Justin's manager. It was just this big thing, which I think really divided the industry. But Taylor did have, this overwhelming amount of support. So effectively what happened is when she switched to Universal, Big Machine then said that she would not be able to use her music at a music event and for certain projects with Netflix. And then apparently she was also owed royalties, although Big Machine denied this, said that it was actually Taylor Swift who owed the money. Which again, look at those contracts. And then effectively her music was sold to an investment fund, reportedly for 300 million plus, and she didn't have any knowledge of that. So as you would imagine, like, you'd be distraught.
It's a part of her.
Yeah.
Just put her soul on these tracks, and then for them to be so coldly, I think, passed around can't be a nice feeling. But I think the fact that she's getting the last laugh is beautiful.
It really is.
She's obviously re-released her latest one now, which is Speak Now.
It is.
Something that stands out for me is the success of these re-released albums. So this album, originally came out in 2010?
Yeah.
And last Friday, when it dropped, it became Spotify's most streamed album in a single day in 2023. Now, that is crazy for a body of work that already existed.
It's the support of the fans. That's what it is. Another artist who has recently started re-recording their albums is Ashanti. Now, Ashanti is not somebody who has necessarily spoken out, to my knowledge, about being in, let's say, a bad deal or contract, but her album Ashanti was released in 2002. It was her self-titled debut album, you know, with just absolute bangers. Like, I don't know, like, guys, like, if you've not listened to the album, if you've not heard it, like, every single track on there is an album, and the fact that that is her first album, to me, is incredible. It did very, very well. And when she announced that she was going to re-record them, Ashanti literally said, you know, I'm recording it so I can collect my coins. Like, that was what she said. Like, she went on the Breakfast Club and was like, you know, that's it. And I love to see it, because I think that we're going to start to see a lot of artists doing this. She announced it on the Breakfast Club, and she said, you know, as an artist, when you're in the game for a certain amount of time, you pay your dues and things are supposed to come back to you. Irv Gotti, who founded Murder Inc., so the label that she was on, he's like, not so fast, Ashanti. And was pretty much like, yeah, okay, you're re-recording it, but just for clarity, I own all those great Ashanti albums. I own the masters, and I produced all those albums. So I also own a good portion of the publishing. So he's like, yeah, what she's trying to do is, you know, just re-record those. However, what he's saying is he's still going to get his coins as far as publishing. So that's the difference. Publishing contract versus a recording contract, two very different things.
We talk about a lot of these re-recordings, but what's interesting for me is a lot of these deals happened so long ago, and a lot of the fan bases aren't there anymore for some artists, and they don't have that privilege of re-recording because they don't have that fan base to tap into anymore. And I think TLC is probably a really good example. I don't know if you know this, but they also suffered at the hands of a really bad deal. And they, particularly at the height of their success, they were pretty successful back in the day.
Like, they're still, the thing is, they're still, no, I was like, I don't know why
don't
you're
get me
bringing my
cancelled.
girls into this.
But relatively.
Yeah, but like, the thing is, like, we have to remember, like, until the Spice Girls came along, TLC to me are still those girls. I played No Scrubs yesterday in my set yesterday, and let me tell you, that went off. I didn't play the Spice Girls. I probably should have done, but TLC, they were the biggest selling girl band of all time. Like, before the Spice Girls. Facts.
But how much money were they taking home?
Yeah, so despite selling 65 million records, they were only taking home $75,000 a piece.
But that's crazy.
No, truly. This is the thing. Like, you just read these things and you're like, what the hell? But yeah, like I said, all due to the fact that they signed a bad contract. And then going on to like other UK artists, Bree Runway, you know, she's worked with Missy Elliott on her track ATM, but she announced on social media that she has parted ways with EMI Records. She's now independent, and that she thinks that it's the absolute best thing for her career right now. And I love that for her.
And she made a point as well, as like we said at the top of the show, about being a young black artist and how having to come up against much more than maybe her counterparts have to come up against.
Think about who we've spoken about. You know, we have Mahalia, we have Bree Runway, we have TLC, we have, you know, artists who, when you look at things in terms of, you know, socioeconomics.
Yeah, Bree said that she feels she has to fight 100 times harder.
And I think whilst we can say, get legal representatives, for me, I've not signed the deals that they've signed, and I can tell you, I kind of wish I maybe did not drop out of law school, because the money that you have to pay for these, not everybody has access to that. That's the truth. So when you come from a certain background and they are showing you, even Mahalia, she was like, you know, someone asked her, why did you sign it? And I think she said something like, you know, I'm a girl, I'm not from London, and they offered me all this world. It's easy to just see all the great things that they're offering you and to just sign the contract, especially when, you know, you don't necessarily come from a background that has seen that money before.
But also they've been grafting up until that point sometimes. So there's been a lot of artists that have been putting the work in year after year after year, and they think, this is my moment now.
That's
of course
it.
I'm going to sign. Let's go.
That's it.
They're just excited for it to actually finally happen for them.
There's so much that goes into this. I mean, the fact that Mahalia, that contract was signed when she was 13 and she's now 25. And she said that she struggles. She's struggled the last 2 months to pay rent. She's been behind on rent.
That's real.
That, like, and I salute and commend her realness, but there should be no contract in the world that means that someone who has sold 100 million tracks, somebody that has a gold record, is struggling to pay rent. And
I loved as well, when we were talking about Brie, that statement she put up, I loved how she said, I deserve the best of me and so do you guys. Mm-hmm. So just give me a second and I'm going to put some more colour back into my music because music is meant to be made that way, which I loved.
Yes, yes, yes.
So what needs to be done? That's what we're all about here in Shuffle, Skip, Repeat. What is it that needs to happen tomorrow, today, that doesn't allow for these things to go on anymore?
I don't know Mahalia, but the fact that she could come out and be so open about what she went through, and social media is not a kind place, let's be real, and say those things. For me, I feel like that's where not that's where it starts, but artists should speak out about this.
And there is tangible support out there as well. So fortunately, there are organizations that are dedicated to supporting artists and advocating for that change. One such organization is obviously Future for Music Coalition, which they work tirelessly to shape policies and promote kind of transparency within the industry, don't they?
They do. And additionally, artists can also seek support from various different organizations like the Music Managers Forum and the Artists' Rights Alliance, which provide resources, guidance and legal support. And I think it's the legal support for me.
Yeah, just to navigate that challenge, the challenges of the music business.
And sometimes, if you're really lucky, you may get a lawyer who, as things progress, they will then say, right, what I'll do, rather than bill you for this, within your contract, we're going to say that this cost is recoupable by the label. So they will then put that in the contract. And I've had that. Because there's been otherwise, like, you end up spending a fortune. You want to have good lawyers.
So yeah, let's just encourage ourselves to be better educated around these issues, support the artists that we love, and really amplify that sound of change.
Couldn't have said it better. Thank you so much for joining us today. I've really enjoyed this.
It's been eye-opening. I've learned a few things. I don't know about you.
You've done your research.
You make it sound like I don't normally.
You did your research. No, I really did learn a few things here. And I really hope that you guys listening did too. And that's it. So thank you so much for joining us this week. And don't forget to check out our bonus episode.
Oh, you were in for a treat this week.
Should we say who it's with?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Actually, no, don't. No, don't.
Okay.
Keep it a surprise. Brit Award winning, though, we can say that.
Yeah.
It's another singer we've got on the show.
You're in for a treat.
But don't forget to follow us on socials.
Yep, at Shuffle, Skip, Repeat. And we'll catch you next time.
Bye.